Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In the previous video, I introduced the types of water-soluble fertilizers suitable for rose maintenance. In this video, I will show you the method and process of applying water-soluble fertilizers when maintaining roses. Because I love roses very much, I have planted many varieties of roses around my house. And watering and fertilizing them is a job I have to do frequently. Some of my roses are planted in pots, some are semi-ground planted, some are planted in flower beds, and some are planted directly in the ground. The different types of roses, the various planting environments, and the large number of them make it impossible for me to fertilize all roses with the same method. Next, I will introduce to you the 3 water-soluble fertilization methods I usually use. The first method is the dissolution method. Dissolution fertilization is a traditional, simple and efficient method. First, add water-soluble fertilizer granules and clean water to the kettle according to the recommended ratio on the fertilizer package. And then stir thoroughly until the fertilizer is completely dissolved to ensure that the nutrients are evenly distributed. When fertilizing, evenly irrigate the fertilizer solution on the roots of the plants. Dissolution fertilization has many advantages. First, since the fertilizer has been completely dissolved in the water, the plants can quickly absorb nutrients through the roots or leaves, so the effect is faster. Secondly, the nutrients in the dissolved fertilizer liquid are evenly distributed, which can effectively avoid the root burn caused by excessive local concentration. In addition, when fertilizing, the concentration of fertilizer can be flexibly adjusted according to the growth needs of roses, so that we can more accurately meet the nutritional needs of roses at different growth stages. However, the dissolution method of fertilization is not completely without disadvantages. For me, the biggest disadvantage is cumbersome. The dissolution method requires dissolving the fertilizer in advance and strictly controlling the concentration of fertilizer to avoid fertilizer damage. There are many roses in my garden. If the dissolution method is used for fertilization, the efficiency will be very low. I only use this intensive fertilization method on rose plants such as potted roses and semi-ground roses that have precise requirements for fertilizer concentration. I also occasionally use it on individual ground-planted rose seedlings that require extra effort to grow strong. The second method is dry spreading. Compared with the dissolving method of fertilization, the dry spreading method of applying water-soluble fertilizer granules is much simpler, especially suitable for ground-planted roses. When fertilizing, evenly spread an appropriate amount of water-soluble fertilizer granules on the soil surface around the rose plant, avoiding the main stem and leaves to prevent the fertilizer from directly contacting the plant and causing burns. Then, use a rake or hand to gently turn the surface soil so that the fertilizer is slightly buried in the soil to reduce nutrient volatilization and loss. Finally, water it immediately to allow the fertilizer to gradually dissolve and penetrate into the root system so that the rose can effectively absorb nutrients. The advantage of the dry spreading method is that it is simple to operate and does not require additional dissolved fertilizer. It is suitable for gardens planted on a large scale. Since the fertilizer granules can gradually dissolve with watering or rainfall, the nutrients are released relatively slowly, the fertilizer effect is relatively long-lasting, and the workload of frequent fertilization is reduced. However, the dry spreading method also has certain disadvantages. For example, if water is not applied in time after fertilization, the fertilizer cannot dissolve quickly, affecting the absorption of nutrients. In addition, if the fertilizer is applied unevenly or too much, it may lead to excessive local fertilizer concentration and burn the root system. Therefore, when using the dry spreading method, It is necessary to reasonably control the amount of fertilizer and ensure timely watering to achieve the best fertilization effect. I mainly use the dry spreading method to apply water-soluble fertilizers in the backyard garden. The backyard garden space is relatively larger, and the roses are planted in the raised bed, which is very convenient for me to walk among the roses. The third method is to use Miracle-Gro Garden Feeder. Among the 3 fertilization methods, using Miracle-Gro Garden Feeder for fertilization is the simplest and most efficient for me. It can fertilize roses while watering, but the preparation work for this fertilization method is relatively cumbersome. First, separate the tank and nozzle of the feeder, and pour the water-soluble fertilizer into the tank. The capacity of this tank is 1 pound of solid fertilizer. I usually pour a whole bag of water-soluble fertilizer into it at one time. Then put the nozzle and tank together again. Next, connect the feeder firmly to the garden hose through this spiral port, and then turn on the faucet valve to start water supply. When fertilizing, press the trigger on the handle of the feeder. The tank starts to fill with water and dissolve the fertilizer, and the nozzle automatically sprays the water solution containing fertilizer. This feeder has a switch, which is an automatic water flow switching valve. Its function is to control the path of the water flow, so that we can switch between the 2 modes of watering only and fertilizing and watering. The specific working principle can be simply summarized as follows. When the tap is turned on, tap water enters the feeder through the water pipe and flows to the nozzle along the built-in water flow channel. When we put this switch in the lock position, the water will flow through the fertilizer tank, thereby dissolving the water-soluble fertilizer and bringing the fertilizer solution out of the nozzle. When the lock is closed, the water will bypass the fertilizer tank and only spray out clear water. When the feeder is in fertilization mode, the water flow forms a negative pressure inside the tank, and the water-soluble fertilizer is automatically mixed into the water flow at a fixed ratio through the siphon principle, regardless of the initial concentration of the fertilizer in the tank. The feeder will ensure that the fertilizer and water enter the spraying system in a uniform and appropriate ratio, even if there is a lot of fertilizer in the fertilizer tank. The feeder will still extract the fertilizer at the established dissolution rate and ensure that the concentration of the final sprayed water solution is within the safe range. Therefore, the fertilizer will not be too concentrated due to long fertilization time or fast water flow. According to official information, after a full load of fertilizer, the feeder can cover an area of about 500 square feet, about 46 square meters, and spray 50 gallons of fertilizer solution. Don't worry if the 1 pound of solid fertilizer you added can't be used up completely after one fertilization. Just leave it in the feeder and use it next time. This feeder is designed with 3 water discharge modes to meet different watering and fertilization needs. Shower mode is suitable for gentle watering and fertilization of large areas. The water flow is similar to a shower head, with a wide coverage area, while reducing the impact on the soil and plants. It is suitable for flower beds, seedlings, or delicate plants. Stream mode sprays concentrated water columns, which can be used for targeted fertilization and directly irrigating the roots of plants. It is suitable for shrubs, rose bushes, large plants, or deep irrigation. Flat mode sprays water in a fan shape, evenly covering a large area, suitable for low plants, ground cover plants, or flower beds for quick fertilization. The flower bed in my front yard is surrounded by a deer-proof net, which is not particularly convenient to enter and exit for dry fertilization or watering dissolved fertilizer solutions. As for why this deer-proof net is installed, I guess friends who have lived in North America and have some planting experience should understand. There are many wild deer in North America. These deer are too hungry, and the taste of roses is too delicious for them. Without some protection, these roses planted outdoors will not bloom safely. Regarding the topic of deer prevention, I have many painful experiences and many ideas to share. I will make a special video to talk about this topic with you in the future. Back to this feeder, it solves my pain point very well, allowing me to water and fertilize these roses covered by the deer-proof net very conveniently and quickly. I have used this method for more than 2 years and have never had the problem of fertilizer damage. Friends who have the same fertilization problem as me can also try it. In particular, this method of fertilizing with feeder is recommended only for roses or other plants planted in the ground, because the soil has a strong tolerance for fertilizer concentration. Even if the fertilizer concentration is unstable due to unstable water pressure occasionally, it will not have much impact on the plants planted in the ground. If it is a potted plant, it is recommended that you use the most traditional and safe dissolution method to fertilize. Well, that's all for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope this video can bring you some inspiration and practical tips on how to apply water-soluble fertilizers to roses. If you like my video, please subscribe, like, comment and forward it. See you next time.